Before I talk about why going supernova should be on everyone's to-do list, let me first introduce myself and my channel, Go Supernova. My name is James. I was born in New York City, raised in the Bronx, and currently reside in Miami, Florida. Like almost everyone in this world, I have dealt with significant trauma, physical and psychological. When I was 3 years old, my mother told me that I fell off of a 12-foot slide in a playground and hit the ground head first. This was in the 80s, before rubber mats were prevalent. This injury should have killed me if it happened the way my mother said it did. When she scooped me off the floor, she said I was unconscious and convulsing. Fearing these were my final moments, she ran into the street with me and jumped in front of a car that came to a screeching halt, threw herself with me in the back seat, and began screaming at a very frightened and confused man and his family, "Take me to the hospital." Obviously, I survived the ordeal, but I have wondered if many of the problems I've encountered throughout my life, my anxiety, depression, and difficulties learning, have been the result of scarring of my brain tissue at such a young age. My whole life I've wondered why everything was an uphill battle, why hating myself came so easily. Good thing I had God, until I didn't. Shortly after the above events, my mother joined a religion that required its followers to only make friends with others in the same denomination. I was required to participate in evangelizing work too. I gave public speeches and carried around a document in my pocket that advised medical personnel I would not accept a blood transfusion even if it meant saving my life. I was 4 when I joined this religion, 14 when I was allowed to make the permanent decision to marry it, baptism, and 34 when I ultimately came to the conclusion I was wrong my whole life and left. That was the day I died. At least to every friend and family member I was close to. Everyone in the religion is commanded not to speak to me, not even to say hello. I know they love me and miss me the way I do them, but they're told by the leadership that people like me have their minds controlled by the devil, that we are enemies of God, and that we will be blown out like a candle with the rest of the world who do not conform to their standards on a day soon coming called Armageddon.
Particularly, they will vanish like smoke. So I thought this would be a nice memory aid. This verse stay in the mind. Here's what Jehovah's promising. That's Jehovah's enemies.
Couple these events with a life full of failures and hardships, such as clinical depression, an alcoholic father, being homeless at a young age and sleeping on another family's couch, being bullied and persecuted for believing how I did, and later in life, failing at my first marriage. All of this is to say I've suffered a hero's portion of negative events that caused serious damage. A trauma that at one point had me in such despair, I was tempted to end my suffering permanently and take my own life. A fate many have chosen as a result of the same traumas I have faced. I'm glad I didn't though. In fact, if you met me, you'd never suspect I had such a lot in life. In fact, I actually hate bringing all of that up. Not because it's painful, but because I processed it, healed from it. And I'm actually grateful all of it occurred to me. In other words, I went supernova. What does that even mean? I'm sure you're wondering where I'm going with this, so let me not waste another second. A supernova is an absolutely magnificent explosion that occurs in space when a star reaches the end of its life and explodes. A star, like everything else in this universe, lives and dies. As it reaches the end of its life cycle, it begins to run out of fuel to burn, so to speak. The star's whole life has been a balance of fighting against the inward crushing force of its own gravity and an outward force of a constantly sustained nuclear explosion from atoms being smashed together and releasing incredible amounts of energy as a result. As atoms are fused together, they become more and more dense atoms until eventually they cannot fuse anymore, nor release any more energy. So basically, the fuel runs out. When that happens, gravity begins to gain an upper hand, one it doesn't give up. In the star's final stages of life, just like the final death throes of someone being choked out, it has one last burst of energy left to display, and man, is it spectacular. As the star's core collapses under the force of a truly immense amount of gravity, it becomes intensely hot, which then causes the last bit of fusible material to fuse, and then it explodes into a supernova. All of the material, atoms and elements, the star manufactured over its lifespan gets blasted out into space. The explosion is so magnificent, you can see one with your naked eyes if you're lucky enough to witness it. It shines brighter than a whole galaxy for a whole month straight. So, why should you do this? This is obviously some sort of metaphor I'm trying to make here, a link I'm trying to draw for you to understand how this amazing event that occurs in space can relate to your life as it did mine. Going supernova represents rebirth. It represents going inward and focusing on yourself. It represents putting back out into the world all you've made. As you make sense of your life in this world and come to further and deeper understandings, these things build within. They create this incredible energy for you to sustain yourself and others with. Yes, some stars explode at the end of their lives, but the good that comes of it literally brings about all we know. Our very bodies, cells, molecules, elements, and atoms can be traced back to these crucible furnaces we know as stars. Whatever you believe facilitated that happening, one thing is for sure. We are made up of the same things the universe is made up of. We are within this universe, and the universe, quite literally, is within us. And while many people have differing opinions on just what our purpose is, I like to think that we are a means by which the universe understands itself. I know, deep. With these things in mind, I wish to cause an effect. That is the purpose of this channel. It may be my reason for being here. I don't think anyone has a set purpose per se, but that which they make for themselves. My chosen path is that I intend to change perspectives, share encouraging thoughts, and fix broken spirits with real practical advice that I have applied to myself to get past my darkest days. So if you're depressed, feeling hopeless, or going through the absolute worst thing imaginable, stick around, and I will teach you how to go supernova.